Allah, 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 لا مولى سوى الله. Allah, 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 ما لنا مولى سوى الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أما بعد. I would first like to thank Khatm Nabuwa Center for hosting me and allowing me to present my work on Qadiyanism. This presentation, inshallah, will give you the necessary knowledge to understand why Qadiyanism is a deviation from Islam and why Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian could not possibly be the promised Messiah and the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after the Khatamul Anbiya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he claimed to be. This presentation is also for all those who seek the truth. We welcome our Ahmadi brothers and sisters in humanity to also listen and pay attention to the personality of Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani and see for themselves if after all the lies and blasphemies and failed prophecies, he can still be considered a righteous person, let alone the promised Messiah. To begin, we'll first start with introduction, their blasphemies, their beliefs. In introduction, first of all, I will first start by introducing the concept of Qadianism. So to begin, we'll start by introduction. We'll introduce the concept of Qadianism, what Qadianism is. We'll delve into more the entire timeline of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani, his whole effort, his whole process, what he did. And then we'll move on to his claims, the da'wah, the claims that he made. And as you can see, there are many claims that he made. And this presentation, inshallah, will be able to follow along the claims that he made and follow along the actual Qadianis, what Qadianism really is, what it really calls for, and what it really calls towards. And inshallah, we'll try to show the light towards Islam, and we'll show the deviation of the Qadianis and of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani. So this was in the introduction. We'll talk about what the Qadianism actually is, what he claimed, and we'll go over his timeline, and then we'll go over his claims. And then after the introduction, we'll go over the blasphemies that he did regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what he says about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the blasphemies that he said against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the blasphemies that he uttered against the non-Ahmadi, against those people that reject him as the promised Messiah, as the second prophet, the prophet coming after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what he said, what he has to say about these kind of people, or about us basically. And their blasphemy is also about regarding Quran. What does he have to say about Quran? What does he have to say about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, about Isa alayhi salam, the prophets, and about major tenets of Islam? And inshallah, the chunk of this presentation will focus on his falsehood from different angles. Over here, we'll look into his lies. We'll look into his false prophecies. We'll look into the fact that he was a poet, and we'll examine the claim of his nubuwwat, the claim of his prophethood from different angles, from the angles of lies, from the angles of false prophecies. And inshallah, if we have more time, we'll delve into very succinctly, we'll delve into the concept of Khatmun Nubuwwah, the concept of finality of the prophethood, and the concept of Hayat of Isa alayhi salam, that if Isa alayhi salam is alive or not. So Qadianis, as you may already know, they try to claim and assert that Isa alayhi salam has passed away. Isa alayhi salam has passed away, and the person who Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had promised to come near the end of time was none other than Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani. So we'll expound this idea, and we will engage with this agenda and this idea. So without further ado, introduction. First of all, who was Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani? I will show you a picture of him. This was Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani, the founder of the Ahmadiyya movement. He is someone who claimed to be the prophet, the promised Messiah, and the Mahdi. So he claimed that he is the prophet after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the concept of the Khatmun Nubuwwah, the concept that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the last messenger, he negated that concept. He negated that concept, and he said that I'm the next prophet after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he also said that I'm the promised Messiah. So the Isa alayhi salam being alive in the skies, he negated that also fundamental aspect of deen, fundamental aspect of our religion. He negated this also, and he said that the promised Messiah that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was talking about, who will come near the end of time, is in fact me. And same thing for Mahdi. He said that I am the one who is the Mahdi. I am the one who is promised to come at the end of near the end of time. So all these titles that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given, like the promised Messiah and the Mahdi, he took these titles to himself, and he said that I am that person. So this is a short introduction about Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani. And now we'll go into his timeline, his entire timeline, how his movement started, what he did, and his claim, how it started, and how his claim was progressing. So first of all, he was born in 1839 or 1840 from his own writing. From his own writing, his birth is 1839. The reason why I'm saying for his own writing is because there's a lot of there's actually a prophecy that he did. He said that I will live for 80 years. I will live for 80 years. And then he died in the age. He died when he was 68 years old. So they tried, many missionaries, many Ahmadi Qadiani missionaries, they will try to twist the date of birth of him. His own twist, they will try to twist his date of birth and say that no, he was actually born in 1835, and they will try to twist with the birth date. But his quotation I'm putting right here, that he himself said that I was born 1839 or 1840. Number two, he was in 1853, he had his first marriage with Hurmat Bibi. In 1857, this is where his religious journey begins, quote unquote. So he starts having teachers. He has his first teacher, early childhood. His first teacher was when he was 6 years old. His name was Fadl Ilahi. And he says, during my childhood, a Persian teacher was employed for me as a servant, and he taught me Quran and few Persian books. So this is his quotation. He himself is saying that this Persian taught me Quran when I was 6 years old. And as we know for a fact, like teachers do not have, prophets do not have teachers. Prophets do not have teachers. And Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani, he himself is acknowledging that I had a teacher and he taught me Quran. We say that our claim is, and the belief of the Ahlul Sunnah and Jama'ah is, the mainstream Muslim is, that prophets do not have teachers. Prophets do not have teachers. Prophets are taught by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly. So in 6, when he was 6 years old, he had a teacher. When he was 10 years old, he had another teacher called Fadl Ahmad, and he taught him Quran. He taught him Arabic, etymology, and syntax. And when he was 16 to 17 years old, he had another teacher, and he studied syntax and logic with them. So these were the teachers of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani. Now, after this, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani, for some time, he moved to Sialkot. He was born in Qadian, like I mentioned before. He was born in Qadian, but after that, for some time, he moved to Sialkot, which is not too far. But he moved to Sialkot, and there he stayed. He stayed for Sialkot for a couple of years. Now, why was the reason why he moved to Sialkot? There's a big reason why he moved to Sialkot, and we'll explore this reason just now. So this is the son of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani, who is also the second Khalifa, quote unquote, their second Khalifa. He's also their second Khalifa, and this is himself, the son of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani, quoting the reason why he moved to Sialkot. And it's very interesting. So first of all, he says, my mother explained to me that on one occasion, during his youth, Hazrat Masih Maud went to collect the pension of his father. So Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani is going to collect the pension of his father. And Mirza Imaduddin went behind. So these two went to collect the pension of the father. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad and Mirza Imaduddin. So after he collected the pension, Mirza Imaduddin had duped him and deceived him. And instead of going to Qadian, they went out somewhere else. So the friend he went with, or the other guy, his companion he went with, so this other guy, he duped Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, and he took and so he didn't take the money, he duped them, but they wandered. So as the text continues, they wandered and roamed different places. They wandered around for different places. So Mirza Imaduddin was taking Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani for touring. So they wandered for different places after they had spent all the money. So after spending all the money, this is when Mirza Imaduddin left him. So he left him alone. So Hazrat Masih Maud did not return out of shame. It was the desire of his grandfather. So now he's explaining that he could not return to Qadian. So it was desire of his grandfather that he gets a job. So he was employed in Sialkot in the office of the deputy commissioner for a small salary. So this is a known fact. Like this is in Surat al-Mahdi, and the quotation is right here. Things to note. So first of all, his age. What was he? He was 24 to 25 years old. He was not a teenager. He was an adult. He was 24, 25 years old. And the pension amount was 700 rupees. The quotation is right here, 700 rupees. That's in that time, around 1850s. So now that same amount would be equal to around 10,000 USD, 9 to 10,000 USD. So that's not a small amount. And now they spend all of that in roaming around. So now these are the questions to ask. Is in what type of touring did he spend all this money? Was he a child at that time that someone could deceive him? What is the meaning of making him tour here and there? If the actions were not shameful, then why did he become embarrassed, which caused him to flee to Sialkot? Where was this large amount spent? So again, this person who he went with, he did not steal the money. He duped him, the quote unquote, what the word says, they duped him and they spent the money. So there was no stealing over here. So after he moved, he stayed in Sialkot for a couple of years. And in 1868, he comes back to Qadian, left the job and took up residence in Qadian. And this is when he started with his debates. He used to debate Christians, Hindus, Aryans, and claims to receive first revelation. This is when he started to claim that he received the first revelation, but it was nothing big yet. So in 1880, this is when he starts to write Barahin al-Ahmadiyya. This is the first book that he ever authors. And inshallah, we'll speak more about authoring books. But this was the first book that he ever authors. The 5th volume was published in 1905. The first 4 volumes were published between 1880 to 1884. And now this is from where his claims start. In 1891, he officially claims to be Isa alayhi salam. He officially claims to be Isa alayhi salam, and officially says that the Masih Maw'ud, that the Muslims are waiting for, who is alive, he has passed away. He passed away a natural death, and actually he passed away in Kashmir, around Kashmir area, and he's dead. He's not coming back. What the person who is coming back, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the person who is coming, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he gave bashar, he gave a glad tiding, was of me. I'm the one who's coming back. So in 1891, this is when he establishes the first Ahmadiyya movement. Officially, the Ahmadiyya movement is established. And these are all the Sahaba Kiram, according to them. They're very high standard, and they're called Sahaba Kiram, and they're referred to as radiyallahu anhum. So this was in 1891. He officially starts the movement, Ahmadiyya movement. It's official. In 1903, then there's the foundations for Minarat al-Masih was placed. This is Minarat al-Masih because there's a hadith that says that Masih Maw'ud, when the promised Messiah, when Isa alayhi salam will come down, he will come down with angels, and he will come down around at the place where the white minaret. He will come down at the white minaret. So then he made a white minaret. He built this and he made this. He laid the foundation, and then he said that this is the white minaret that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was talking about. But this is the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he passed away before its completion. And this is the power that he passed away. He did not even see it completed in its complete form. He passed away before its completion. So in 1903, 1905, he made a Jannat al-Baqi' beside the minaret. So the minaret that we showed, he made a Jannat al-Baqi', an entire Jannat al-Baqi', and said and claimed that whoever is buried in it will go to Jannah. Whoever is just making a mockery out of deen, making literally mockery out of deen. He made another Jannat al-Baqi', his own minaret. He made his own whole Sahaba Kiram, and we'll go over more of it, their blasphemies. But he made an entire Jannat al-Baqi' and said whoever is buried in it will go to Jannah. In 1908, he died on 26 May. So this was his short timeline. We'll go it again quickly. So in 1839, he was born. His marriage. 1857, he started having teachers, and his youth and employment, where he spent his youth. He was just touring around. And in 1868, he had started to have debates and first claim of a revelation. 1880, started to write Barahin al-Ahmadiyya. 1891, he claimed to be Isa alayhi salam in 1891, and also he established the Ahmadiyya movement. So inshallah, after this, we'll go on with his claims. What are the things that he claimed? And these are all the things that he claimed to be. He claimed to be the mujaddid, the reviver, the one who will revive Islam, quote unquote. He claimed to be the ma'mur, the one who is commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these are the quotation right here. He also claimed to be ma'mur. He also claimed to be a nazir, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught you the Quran so that you can warn those whose forefathers were not warned. So this is Ruh and Khazan reference, everything is referenced. Claim of Risalat, that he is the Rasul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Claim of Masih, that he is the Messiah, the promised Messiah. And over here the quotation, we have made you Masih ibn Maryam. Tell them that I have come in the footstep of Isa alayhi salam. So that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling him that you are Masih ibn Maryam. He claimed of being, and this is interesting, he claimed the claim of being the being of kun fayakun. Kun fayakun meaning be and it is. So this person, right here, over here is the actual text. So he says inspiration, ilham. So I'm having this inspiration from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that your matter is that whenever you intend anything, so your matter meaning your matter, you Mirza, like your matter is that whenever you intend anything, you say be and it becomes. So it's not about Allah, it's you have that power. You have that power that whenever you will say be, it will become. So he's attributing the kun fayakun, the aspect, the being of kun fayakun to himself. And this is the Arabic right here. And also being of Masih and Mahdi. Allah has promised me glad tidings and fortune. The promised Messiah and the fortunate Mahdi that they are waiting for is you. So Allah said to him that the promised Messiah and the fortunate Mahdi, both Messiah and the Mahdi that they're waiting for is you. Ruhani Khazain. So number 8. Number 8, he also claimed to be a Nabi and a Rasul with an independent Sharia. So this is a big deal over here. Why? Because many people, many missionaries, Qadiani missionaries, they will claim that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani only claimed to be a Ummati Nabi. They will create this terminology in Islam. This terminology, an Ummati Nabi. So because he did not bring his independent Sharia. So they're trying to claim that. So now over here, we'll explore the idea that how Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani, how he himself, he said that I am a Nabi and a Rasul with an independent Sharia. So first of all, the first quotation, and say, O people, I have come to you all as the Rasul of Allah. Who is the Rasul? Nabi, Rasul. Rasul is the one who has the independent Sharia. Quotation. We have sent a Rasul to you just as we sent a Rasul to Fir'aun. Who was sent to Fir'aun? Musa alayhi salam. Musa alayhi salam was what? Was a Rasul, had his independent Sharia. So he said that we have sent a Rasul to you just as we sent a Fir'aun. And number 3, indeed you are from the messengers upon the straight path. So these were his claim. So now we'll swiftly move on to their blasphemies and their beliefs and blasphemies. So these are places where the blaspheme against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where there's beliefs and what they believe about non-Ahmadiyya, when they blaspheme against the Quran, when they blaspheme against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they have their own belief system about the major tenets of Islam. So regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says 2 things. First of all, that I saw in my vision that I am God, and I believe that I am the one. He said, I believe that I am the one, I am God. Number 2, he said, Allah said to me, Anta minni, Allah said to me, you are of me as my buruz, as my projection. You are like my projection. So this was the 2 things regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. About non-Ahmadi, what did he think about people who did not accept his claim? People like us that do not accept his claim. What does he think about us? What do they think about us? So Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani, blatantly, he says that anyone who dismisses my claims, anyone who does not believe in my claim, is the children of an adulterous woman. Children of an adulterous woman. Basically, they're bastards. That's the wording. So they're children of adulterous women. And he uses this wording many times. So Ahmadi, what they will say, the Ahmadiyya community, the missionaries, what they will say, that you have to look at context. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani, he's talking to the Christians, he's talking to the Hindus, he's talking to those people. And by testifying, he says that he's talking to them, that if you do not accept the truthfulness, the truth of Islam, in my work against the defense in defense of Islam, then you are the children of adulterous women. So now our answer is, let's look at the Arabic. I'm not going to read the Arabic, but over here you can clearly see that over here, this is where he says that da'wati, like that when they do not accept my da'wah general, when they do not accept my claim, if they do not accept my claim, then this. So summary, it says whoever does not accept my claim is and right away, the next sentence, as you can see, I've even highlighted over here, the next sentence is talking about him being a prophet. And right away in the next sentence, he claims he received revelation. Right away over here, he says he received revelation. So he's kept a general statement. And now Mirza Bashir Ahmad, his son, his own son, what he says about this whole movement, he says that either Mirza Ghulam Ahmad lied about Allah, therefore he's a kafir, or he is truthful and his believers are kafir. He is truthful and his believers are kafir. It's either or. Both of these two cannot be the same. It cannot be at the same time. And this is the full quote. Number 2, every individual who believes in Musa alayhi salam but rejects Isa alayhi salam, or accepts Isa alayhi salam but rejects Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or this is where continuation, or accepts Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam but rejects the promised Messiah, is not only a kafir but an obstinate kafir and outside the fold of Islam. So this is his own son. This is the second Khalifa of the Ahmadiyyat community. He himself is saying, and he's including Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani with all these big names. And regarding Quran, the blasphemies, he nearly attributed all the verses that were for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to himself. For example, you can see over here, all these verses, he says that all these verses were revealed for himself, to himself. Inna fatahna laka fathan mubina. This was revealed about him. Yasin wal Quran al-Hakim, it was talking about him. Surah Kawthar, Inna a'tainaka al-Kawthar, that was all talking about his enemies. And all these, Thumma dana fatadalla, that was talking about Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. And claim that this verse Mubashiran bi Rasuli, where it is prophesizing the prophet in the Torah and Injil, bismihi Ahmad, ba'd bismuhu Ahmad. So he says that this Ahmad is referring to him, the Mirza Ghulam Ahmad is referring to him, and this is the quotation. And now regarding the prophets, regarding Isa alayhi salam, so this is, I'm just trying to show the blaspheming that happened against Isa alayhi salam. So about Isa alayhi salam, he says that Isa alayhi salam can't even dare to step on my mimbar. These were actual words. He can't even dare to step on my mimbars. Number 2, he says he's greater in rank than Isa alayhi salam. He's greater in rank than Isa alayhi salam. And right here is a quotation. He's talking about to the Christian missionaries. He says that over here, that don't say that my Rabb is Masih. There's someone amongst you right now who is better, who's greater than that Masih. And he even talks to the Shia community. He says, don't say that Hussein is the savior, but so there's someone who is better than Hussein this time. So he's talking about this, and he's being very vocal. And now over here, Mirza says in one of the poems, mention not the son of Mary, Ghulam Ahmad is better than him. Right here. Don't talk about Maryam, don't talk about the son of Maryam, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad is better than him. And then he also adds that don't think this is a poetic exaggeration, it is the fact and the truth. So this was his belief regarding Isa alayhi salam. Number 3, he also says if Isa alayhi salam came in his time, then Isa alayhi salam would have underachieved compared to him and would not be able to manifest the sign that he manifested. And now what does he have to say about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Number 1, he said he's the projection of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the newer incarnation is better. This is the full quotation. Number 2, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was favored with sign of lunar eclipse, only lunar eclipse. But for me, both the sun and the moon were eclipsed. This is the quotation right from his book. Number 3, he claimed that his prophethood is proven by Quran and not hadith. The hadith that contradicts his claims, he'll throw away like filthy paper. Over here, there is the Urdu. He says that in Urdu. और दूसरे हदीसों को हम रद्दी की तरह फेंक देंगे, like we'll just throw them away like filthy paper. This was his actual quote about the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like the hadith where thousands and thousands of scholars just gave their entire lives to serve that science of hadith, that science of words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, keeping the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And now he's saying that he will throw away those same words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that contradicts his statements. And our major tenets of Islam, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani, he is given the title of Prophet, Messenger, Promised Messiah, Projection of Allah, Projection of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His disciples, they are called Sahaba Kiram radiyallahu anhum. His wife is called Mother of Believers, Ummahatul Mu'mineen. His successors are called Khulafa and Siddiqeen. And Qadian is declared as land of Haram and mentioned in the Quran. And we'll see that lie. He said that Qadian is mentioned in the Quran. What do all these differences show? Differences show that there's different things. There are different beliefs. There's two different belief systems. This is why we are inviting the sincere brothers and sisters in humanity, the Ahmadi brothers and sisters, if they're sincere, the sincere brothers and sisters, to understand the differences between Islam and Qadianism. This is why we're saying the reality of Qadianism. And at the end, so this is inshallah, we'll end with hopefully with this segment, inshallah, the falsehood from different angle. His falsehood from different angle. This is where we'll talk about the lies, the false prophecies, and we'll look at the falsehood of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad from different angles. So first of all, as a preface, as an introduction, I'd like to mention the concept of fallacies, because every time you engage with the Qadianis, every time you engage, they always have they try to give answers. They try to refute our arguments with the arguments of their own. But many times those arguments that they use is flawed. Their arguments are flawed. So many times we don't even have to engage with those arguments. I hope inshallah is going to get clear as we move on. But a fallacy means that someone who's arguing and he thinks that he's giving a correct argument. He thinks that he's giving a correct argument, but it's actually a wrong argument. And now you don't engage with the argument, you just point out the wrong. You just point out that, look, you're using a wrong statement. Your argument is wrong. For example, these are the three fallacies that the Qadianis love to use. First fallacy is two-quoque fallacy. Of course, you don't necessarily need to know the term, it's technical terms, but just try to understand the concept. Two-quoque fallacies is that it involves rejecting someone's views because of their supposed hypocrisy. Inshallah, an example will explain better. If someone says, person A says, you should stop smoking. Person A says, you should stop smoking. Person B says, you have been smoking for 10 years. Yourself. You have been smoking for 10 years yourself, so there goes your argument. So person A says, look, listen, brother, you should stop smoking. But then other person, you've been smoking for 10 years. So now he's presenting a argument that you should stop smoking, and these are the health diseases it can cause and the detriments and all that. But the other person, he doesn't give his own side that no, why it is good to smoke. He just generally just says you've been smoking for 10 years. Doesn't give an answer. You can see how there's no answer here. There's no answer. He's not engaging with the argument. There's nothing. So for example, this literally something that will happen with the missionaries. You will tell them that, look, this is a false prophecy. This is a failed prophecy. What is the first thing they would say? That, oh, when you look at Nuh alayhi salam, his son Nuh alayhi salam, he thought that the son of Nuh alayhi salam would be saved from the flood, but he was not saved. Right away they will say, hypocrisy, you're being hypocrite. You accept Nuh alayhi salam, but you don't accept our prophecy. But you're not engaging. Like, look, I'm just trying to understand that, look, we have answers. We have those answers. But we have to understand that when they come back, point fingers at our point fingers to us, they're putting all the prophets under the bus just to save the face of their own prophet or their own claimant they're claiming to be. So they're ready to throw every prophet under the bus. They're ready to throw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam under the bus. They're ready to throw Yunus alayhi salam under the bus. They're ready to throw Nuh alayhi salam under the bus. They're ready to throw everyone under the bus. And they will say, oh, you have a question with this prophecy? Well, this prophet also did that. But that's just false. And this is a first part of the fallacy, the two-quoque fallacy. He'll always say, oh, you have this problem, you deal with this problem. But that's not part of the argument. You have to engage. You have to, when you engage with the Qadianis, make them engage with the argument. Tell them, look, put them aside. You answer about your prophet. You answer about your prophet. You make us understand this failed prophecy. So this is the two kokwe fallacy. Number two, fallacy of false analogy. Fallacy of false analogy. And these two together, they're a big bond, because right away you mentioned them a failed prophecy, right? They will talk about the Nuh alayhi salam, that the Nuh alayhi salam, the son of Nuh alayhi salam was drowning, and then Rasulullah, Nuh alayhi salam called out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then he said that, oh, you will save you had promised that you will save my family. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replied that he is not from your family. So they will say, oh, he also misunderstood prophecy. They will try to equate the two. So false analogy is, or false equivalency is, when you equate two things that are not equal. So the definition is the fallacy of incorrectly comparing one thing to another in order to draw a false conclusion. They compare this to that and they draw a false conclusion. They were never supposed to be compared. These two had nothing to do with each other. These two contexts, their scenarios had nothing to do with each other, but they falsely play mental gymnastics to fit their agenda, to fit their narrative. This is the fallacy of false analogy. And number three, finally, a priori fallacy. And this is one of the main fallacies. This is one of the main fallacies. And the explanation is that starting with a given preset belief, you start with the conclusion in mind. So when you already have your conclusion in mind, and then whenever you find any given mental gymnastics you can play or any flexibility, then you will take that and you will defend and justify it. So you have already made your conclusion from before. You already made your conclusion. So this is it. Like when we show a clear false prophecy of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, we'll show a clear lie of his. But because they have their mind set, like no matter what happens, they have a dogma. They're dogmatic. Dogmatism mean that we're just following my way, or they have like it's just my way. Like there's no other option. It's just this. So they've already made their conclusions in mind. So, and because they've made the conclusion, now whatever flimsy excuse or mental gymnastic they'll play, and we'll see how crazy far-fetched gymnastics and mental gymnastics they play just to prove some aspect of the fallacy of the lies or the lies. So let's talk about first of all the lies. I hope it's clear to everyone. If you have any questions regarding the presentation, if you're not following, then please feel free to write questions and ask questions. So lies, introduction. So in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, He says very clearly that the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on those who lie. And Mirza Ghulam Ahmad himself, he says all of these things about lying. So this is himself saying that lying makes you murtad. Lying makes you murtad. Lying is the worst action. Just a second. Lying makes you murtad. Is the worst action. It's like eating stool. Way of dogs, and I have quotations right here quotations. Way of dogs, worse than dogs, pigs, and monkeys. Even a bastard has more shame. And Allah's curse is on him. So all this, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, he himself is saying about lying. So if we prove one lie of his, then he becomes all this. And another statement that he made, a very interesting statement he made, he also said, it is clear that when a person is proven to have lied in one matter, then no reliance will be placed upon him in other matters. This is why we call him Kadhab. This is why we call him not Kadhab, that he is repeatedly lying. He did not only lie once, he is repeatedly lying, and we'll prove that. So if you prove one lie, then you cannot trust any of his statements. So all we need to do to refute Qadianism is to prove one lie. One lie, that's it. So therefore, if the lie of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani is proven, then he should be given all these titles. So now let's count the lies. So father, I'm just having these keywords so it's easier to remember if someone tries to memorize them. So father, He said, look at history. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the only one whose father passed away a few days after his birth. A few days after his birth. And the truth is that it's a consensus that the father of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had passed away before he was even born. Before he was even born, and the Quran affirms this, that did he not find you an orphan and gave you shelter. So the Quran affirms this. That's the first lie. And how this is a clear lie. Number two, a son. He said that the historians know that there were 11 sons born in the home of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All of them had passed away. 11 sons. 11 sons born and all of them passed away. A clear lie. We know that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam only had 3 sons, Abdullah, Qasim and Ibrahim. Present the writing of a single historian that claimed that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had 11 children. And all sons, 11 sons, not children, 11 sons. And all of them passed away. Present a single historian, claim of single historian. Number 3, plague. We'll not have time to go through this. It's a bit longer, but inshallah, if we have time during then, we'll come back. Number 4, Qadiyan. The lie, he said that there are 3 cities mentioned in the Quran. 3 cities mentioned in the Quran. Makkah, Medina, and Qadiyan. 3 cities mentioned in the Quran, Makkah, Medina, and Qadiyan. So the truth, every reciter knows that there is no mention of Qadiyan in the Quran. No mention of Qadiyan in the Quran. Number 5, he said that he will be the Mujaddid. He said that similarly, it is mentioned in the authentic hadith that the promised Messiah will come at the start of the century. He will be the Mujaddid of the 14th century. So the promised Messiah will come at the start of a century, and that century will be the 14th century. So promised Messiah will come 14th century. So there are 2 lies over here. First, the promised Messiah will come at the beginning of the 14th century. And second, it is proven from authentic narration. Keep in mind, authentic narration. So 2 lies, clear lies. And the truth is, such a statement has not been narrated by any pious elder. No one narrated this, that the promised Messiah will come at the 14th century. Number 2, there's an open lie. The Qadianis cannot present a single authentic hadith that has the subject matter in it. Until the Qiyamah, they will not be able to present a single hadith. And Mirza Ghulam has attributed a false hadith to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He has attributed a false hadith to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we all know this hadith that whoever lies on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he knows that he's lying, then he's making his abode in hellfire. And again, present a single hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned 14th century. So another open lie. Sahih Bukhari. And this also, these lies are like, you cannot, there's no other interpretation to these lies. Number 1, he says, let's go through this. He said, if there is reliance on the words of the hadith, then practice should be on the hadith that are more authentic than this hadith. For example, so now he's giving a hadith. The hadith of Sahih Bukhari, where information is given about some of the khulafa of the final era. So he's talking about the khulafa in the final era, specifically the khalifa regarding whom it is stated in Sahih al-Bukhari that a sound will come from the skies regarding him. Hada Khalifatullah al-Mahdi. This is the Khalifa of Allah, the Mahdi. Now think, what is the position of this hadith, which is mentioned in the most authentic book after the book of Allah? The most authentic book after the book of Allah, Sahih Bukhari. And he's saying that in Sahih Bukhari there is this narration, that there is a Khalifa, and then the sound will be said from the heavens, Hada Khalifatullah al-Mahdi. Clear lie. So the truth is, this hadith is not found in Sihah Sitta, the 6 canonical books of a hadith does not have this hadith, let alone the Sahih Bukhari. Let alone Sahih Bukhari. None of the canonical books have this hadith. And they try to refute their attempt to refute in our answers. So first of all, they will say, oh, it's not in Bukhari, but it is in Kanzul Amal. Simple answer, like, so what? The claim is of Bukhari. How can that claim be correct? Number 2, the objection. It was a mistake of the scribe. Answer, Then what about the words of mentioned ahead, the most authentic book? Okay, the scribe made a mistake about Sahih Bukhari or Kanzul Umar, but he is trying to actively make a statement. He's trying to make a point, and the point he's trying to make, he's trying to prove, is that in the Sahih Bukhari it is mentioned this. He's trying to give his position. So according to the Qadiyanis, is Kanzul Umar the most authentic book after the Book of Allah? Number 3, finally, objection. He stated this in forgetfulness. He forgot about it. He forgot about it. So the answer is pretty clear. He made the statement in 1893. He had 15 years to correct the mistake. 15 years. He made no apology for this. And it is the belief of the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, true messengers cannot remain upon something that he did in forgetfulness. True messengers cannot remain on the forgetfulness. His own statement, this is what he himself, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani himself says, the truth of the matter is that a prophet is human as well. And it is not bad that he might make some error in judgment, but he is not kept on his error, and at some time he is told about his mistake. This is Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani, he himself saying. So this was the lie about Sahih Bukhari. And finally, number 7, he said another lie that we come to know from the books of all the Anbiya, and similarly from the Quran, that from Sayyidina Adam right until the end, Allah has kept the existence of the world for 7,000 years. So the world will exist only for 7,000 years. This is his claim. And not only his claim, but he said that this is mentioned in the Quran and all the books of Anbiya. They mention that the world is going to be for 7,000 years. And after that, the world will end after 7,000 years. The truth, this clear accusation, false accusation against the Quran, on the Quran, and all the heavenly book and the Anbiya. Not established from any Nabi that the world will exist for 7,000 years. And actually, in contrast, in fact, all Anbiya are unanimous that no one besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the correct knowledge for Qiyamah. They don't even know the century in which it will occur. So now, after going through all the lies, the 7 lies that we have mentioned, the lie of the father, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has his father passed away a couple of days after him. We know for a fact that he passed away before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born. The lie of the sons of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said that there were 11 sons of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Qadian in the Quran, he mentioned that Qadian is mentioned in the Quran. Mujaddid at the 14th century, he said that there's a authentic narration that there will be a Mujaddid in the 14th century. There's a challenge to the Mirzais and Qadianis to present even one hadith. Sahih Bukhari, there's a hadith in Sahih Bukhari that says XYZ, and then there's no mention of such hadith in any of the canonical books. And age of the world 7,000 years. So these are clear lies. We only have like 20 minutes to go. Inshallah, we won't have time to cover the objection. Well, they will say that, okay, Ibrahim alayhi salam also lied. What's the big fuss? But the thing to understand is that Ibrahim alayhi salam, he did not lie per se. It was more like it was a tawriya. The lies of so it was double meaning, had double meaning. So the onlooker would think that it's a lie, but in actuality it's the truth. So it has double meaning. But the lies of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani are actual lies. There's no other interpretation. They're genuine lies. And number 3, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad himself has this to say, has called people shaitan, or those who say that Ibrahim alayhi salam lied. He called them shaitan. So now we will inshallah move into the final segment about the false prophecies of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani. And now this is just for introduction. This is a good place to start. The principle that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani in relation to the prophecies. Let's see. So the 3 principles, right? And we know these 3 principles, that for a person to be false in his prophecies is in itself the greatest disgrace. So you cannot be false in prophecies. There's more of this. So therefore, if we prove any of his prophecies to be false, then automatically it will mean that he is a liar and a Dajjal. If we prove one of his false prophecies false, then he's a Dajjal. Only one. So their plot. So this is how they will try to word. This is their plot. So now they will mention to you 3 things. They'll mention to you 3 things. 2 of them are acceptable, and the third is a deception. They're mixing truth with they're mixing lies in the truth. And they're presenting in a way that everything is the truth. And a person might be deceived by this, but do not be deceived. So they will mention 3 points. The first point, they will say that the prophecy of a Nabi cannot be false. Correct. The prophecy of a Nabi can never be false. Acceptable, definitely. And now, a person whose prophecy is false cannot be a Nabi. Everyone's following? Number one, the prophecy of a Nabi cannot be false. Acceptable. Number two, if a person claims to be a prophet and then has a false prophecy, then he cannot be a Nabi. Also acceptable. And now this is a deception. Number three, a person whose prophecy turns out to be true is a Nabi. This is a deception. If someone says that if someone's prophecies turn out to be true, then you accept him as a Nabi. This is a big deception. They're, like I said, hiding lies in truths. So deception is not necessary. If a person's prophecy sometimes turns out to be true, then he's a Nabi. Not necessary. Why? Because prophecies of many soothsayers and astrologers and Nostradamus and many other people did prophesy many things. Even if their prophecy turns out to be true, we don't call them prophets. We don't call them the Nabi. And again, if someone's prophecy coincidentally turns out to be true, then it would never necessitate that he is a Nabi. Even if all of his prophecy turns out to be true, it will still not necessitate that he is a Nabi, that he's a prophet. But in the contrast, if even one of his prophecies turns out to be false, then you know for a fact that he is not commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So just to nail in this point more, we'll give another example. So this is the A. A Nabi does not author books, right? A Nabi does not author books. Fair enough. And if someone author books, then he cannot be a Nabi. Fair. Therefore, the one who does not author books is a Nabi. Does that make sense? The person who does not author book is a Nabi. Doesn't make sense. He has many other reasons not to author books. I haven't authored a book, so does that mean I'm a Nabi? So that's the fallacy. That's the problem. For example, another one. A Nabi cannot be a poet. Right? Fair enough. A Nabi cannot be a poet. A poet, the one who is a poet, is not a Nabi. The poet is not a Nabi. Therefore, every non-poet is a Nabi. You see, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So, like I said, it's affirming the consequent. This is the name of the fallacy. And so we don't have time to get into the whole fallacy technicalities. But the thing is, there could be other factors or explaining for B being true without A being true. Inshallah, this example will make understand. If A, then B. If it rained, then ground will be wet. If it rained, then ground will be wet. So the ground is wet. Therefore, it rained. Not necessary that the ground is only wet because it's rained. Someone might have dropped water also. Someone was just watering the garden. Doesn't mean that it rained. So there are other explanations also. So now let's go into the failed prophecies. So opponent's death. So this is a failed prophecy of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani, and it is very clear. He had a debate with a Christian, and then he prophesied that you will die. That you will die for the number of days the debate lasted. It lasted for 15 days, within months equal to it. So you will die in 15 months. So, and he made this prophecy on 5th July 1893. He said that this person, his name was Abdullah Atham, he will die in 15 months. This was the prophecy. The prophecy is made. Now, the failed prophecy. 15 months later, no harm. He was not harmed. Nothing. And then what happened? The Christian actually celebrated. And an effigy of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani was made, and the rope was placed on his neck, and he was artificially hanged. And the effigy was then set alight. So the Abdullah Atham was made to sit on an elephant, and the whole celebration parade went out. So now his attempt to save face, his first attempt, he says that, oh no, he repented, he retracted from his statement. So the answer to that is, number one, Mirza said this. He himself said this about prophecies, that taking an oath and saying something indicates that the apparent wording will be taken into consideration. No interpretation or exclusion will apply to it. Otherwise, what is the benefit of taking an oath? So he says, when you take an oath, and then you give a prophecy, then there is no interpretation in that oath, and there is no interpretation in that prophecy. So therefore, according to his own principle, in a statement made under oath, there is no room for any interpretation exception. No room for any interpretation exception. And over here, he's doing an exception that, oh no, he had done that, he had repented. Where was the exception in the qasam, when he took the oath? There was no such exception. He didn't say except he will die except if he repents. He didn't say that. So where is the repentance? There's no interpretation of an exceptions. And in conclusion, according to the principle of Mirza Ghulam Qadiani, it is completely incorrect to make any interpretation in this regard. So that's number one. Number two, there's another point. To avoid humiliation, if let's say that he did repent. So in order to save face, and not to protect himself from the mockumentary that he received, then he could have just said, oh, Abdullah Atham has repented, and he will not die. He will not die on the 15 months after. He will not die on this date. He could have simply said that. But what actually happened, an increase in supplication prayers. There is an increase the night before this whole incident. There was an increase in supplication. He even gave litanies, like invocations, tasbih, to repeat continuous ritual to his followers that Atham should die and the prophecy should be fulfilled. So this is the quotation that I do not remember the surah. However, I do remember that it was a short surah similar to Alam Tara. We spent almost the entire night to complete this special litany. So they were making dua. So second Khalifa Mirza, and again, same thing. So we had this, however, I can clearly remember that scene, that when the final day of the prophecy of Atham arrived, dua was made in great distress and anxiety. I did not even find the morning of Muharram to be so severe. The promised Messiah was very busy in dua on one side. So why was this dua? Why was there this dua if he knew that he had retracted? So this was, inshallah, we have to move on quickly. So we're not gonna. So this is the first failed prophecy. Let's see the second one. His own death. He himself, he says that prophesies that he would die in Makkah or Medina. He said that I will die in Makkah or Medina. He said that. And the falsehood is he did not even visit Makkah or Medina, let alone die there. And now this is where I was talking about the mental gymnastics that they will play. And they already have a conclusion in mind. They already have their set conclusion that I have to prove this now. No matter what, I need to prove this. So now, what is the mental gymnastics they play? They play their answer. It is talking about victory over Makkah and Medina, like the Muslims had when the Muslims conquered Makkah, and so that was a victory. So the victory the Qadianis will have victory over Makkah and Medina. So this is literally their answer. That their prophet prophesied that I will die there, somehow now means that they will have victory over that place. This is the mental. So you really have to assume the conclusion from before looking at the arguments. So if there's someone very sincere brothers and sisters considering this the real Islam, then they should think about this. That do we have the conclusion from beforehand? Like if this is the conclusion that we have already beforehand, then no matter what we present, there will be mental gymnastics played. And then we have to literally we have to look at these fallacies, look at these prophecies and not through these fallacies. We must be critical of these prophecies. We must be critical of his character. Many times a person becomes, he's Qadiani, he's looking through these prophecies. He will look through it. He will not look at it. So if you want to be critical thinker, and if you're considering and you're sincere, then look at these prophecies and this lying and this character of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani, and not through it. So their answer, he was talking about victory. Now our rebuttal, to be honest, we don't even need to rebut it. It is just a mental gymnastic that's clear. We don't even need to rebut it. But first of all, did it even happen? Did they have, is Makkah and Medina Qadiani? Is Makkah and Medina mostly Ahmadi? So what kind of victory are they talking about? What kind of victory are they talking about? Number two, then what is the point of saying or? He says, I will die in Makkah or Medina. Makkah or Medina. So does that mean he will have victory over Makkah or Medina? It's just like literally they're just they're trying to save their face, but they have nothing. They have nothing. The third failed prophecy, he prophesies that so he had one of his special disciple, his wife was pregnant. His name was Pir Manzur. He prophesies that there will be he prophesies two things, that this person will have, there will be an earthquake, there will be a big earthquake, and the sign of this earthquake will be when Pir Manzur's Muhammad Ludhianvi Muhammadi Begum would give birth to a boy. When the wife of this person will give birth to a boy, the boy will be signed for the earthquake. Therefore, his name will be Bashiruddin. So this was the prophecy. What happened? The result, a girl was born. His attempt, he literally said this, that no, the intended meaning was not that a boy would be born from this pregnancy, but in a later pregnancy, in the future. It doesn't mean this pregnancy. So literally, like, just onlooker, he's saying that if there's a pregnant lady, he says, oh, when the boy is born, there will be a big earthquake. And a girl is born, so literally he's gonna save face like that. Like, no, I didn't mean this pregnancy. Means another pregnancy. His attempt. So now the result, the woman passed away. And now there was nothing. The woman passed away. There was no boy born. Therefore, one, woman did not give birth to a boy, and two, there was no earthquake. No earthquake happened. So now the result. So what was the ridiculous distortion? So this is literally their distortion. They say that the boy is talking about Ghulam Ahmad himself. That that Allah used the word Mia Manzur Muhammad, but prophecies are not always applied to the exact person, and this name was in reality referring to Mirza Ahmad himself. So this person, Pir Manzur, it was not his disciple, but he was referred to himself, that I will have a boy. I will have a boy that will be born, and when this boy is born, then there will be an earthquake. So it's not actually Pir Manzur who will have a boy, I will have that boy. So again, I will repeat, Allah used the word Mia Manzur Muhammad, but prophecies are not always applied to the exact person, and this name was in reality referring to Mirza Ahmad himself. The son was no other than the promised son Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmad, and the person Manzur Muhammad was Mirza Ahmad. This is literally the distortion. This is the level of distortion that they will come down to doing. And the earthquake, of course, there was no earthquake. So talking about the world war, the war that shook the world right after the Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud became the Khalifa. So literally, like everything, they'll have distortion, and they will genuinely play mental gymnastics. This is why I point out a priori fallacies. They have their conclusion in mind. They have their dogma. They have their set of belief, and now everything will be judged with their set of belief, and everything they will disregard everything, and they will play their mental gymnastics. The fourth, Muhammadi Begum. Of course, it's a very famous thing that he will marry. We won't have too much time to get into detail. But let's see, his age. He also prophesied that he will be 8 years old when he marries. He will be 8 years old when he marries. He will be 8 years old when he dies. When he passes away, when he dies, he will be 8 years old. So falsehood. The falsehood died when he was 68 years old. Died when he was 6 years old, and this is the proof. He himself stating that I was this age. I was born 39, 40, and May 16, 1901, he said that I'm nearly 6 years old. I'm nearly 6 years old. So therefore, if date of birth is correct, then prophecy is false. If prophecy is correct, then he lied about his date of birth. His marriage, again, he says he prophesies that he would marry a virgin and a non-virgin. There's another funny distortion. He literally prophesied that I will marry a virgin and a non-virgin. Truth, the virgin, he married Nusrat Jahan Begum in 1884. He married Nusrat, so yes, he didn't marry virgin. Widow, did not marry anyone. Did not marry any widow. Now the distortion, look at the distortion. The distortion This inspiration manifested itself in the being of al-Mu'mineen, referring to Nusrat Jahan Begum, through both angles. I.e., she came as a virgin and she was left as a non-virgin. So he's talking about the same person. So the same wife, Nusrat Jahan Begum, so he's the same person. She was a virgin and a widow. That same person. So when she came as a virgin, and when she was left as a non-virgin. So this is the distortion. But clearly, he did not say he will marry one woman. He clearly said woman, virgin and a widow. Married two women, virgin and a widow. And lastly, he prophesied that a train will be built connecting Mecca and Medina in 3 years. The context that the Turks were building a train between Mecca and Medina, and when he became aware of this, he made the claim that this is a sign and proof of his Mahdawiyat, that he is the Mahdi. That before people used to travel on camels, but now the travel of camels will become extinct and be replaced with rail. So this work is being carried out as such a pace that it will be completed only in a 3 year, only 3 years. So he said in 3 years it will be completed. What happened? The Turks abandoned the project. The prophecy was made on 1902. 1905 was supposed to be completed. What actually happened? The Turks abandoned the project. So as you can see, we're closing to our end. Finally, just poetry. We know for a fact that the prophets cannot be poets. Allah mentioned in the Quran in response to the believers of Mecca that we did not teach him, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, poetry, and nor does it behove him, nor does it befit him for him to know poetry. And reading the Quran, regarding the Quran, وَمَا هُوَ بِقَوْلِ شَاعِرٍ, this is not the wording of a poet. And Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, he himself, he says that he not only was he a poet, but he acclaimed of miraculous poetry. He has his own book, Dur-e Thamin, that he has his own poetry book. So this was, alhamdulillah, inshallah, we'll wrap up. So this was the introduction. In introduction, we went through the short timeline. We spoke about what he was, his claims, and then in blasphemies, we spoke about what he has to do, what he has to say about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what he has to say about non-Ahmadis, what he has to say about the Quran, regarding the Quran, the prophets, and the major tenets of Islam. And then he has his falsehood from different angles. We saw his lies and false prophecies. And of course, they will try their best to get away from this topic and talk about Khatm al-Nabuwah, and talk about the concept of finality of the prophethood, and talk about the hayat of Isa alayhi salam, the life of Isa alayhi salam, meaning if Isa alayhi salam is alive or not. They will try to twist the whole narrative. They will try to twist the whole narrative. We need to try to bring them back to the main narrative and talk about, even if we assume all what you're saying, why do you have to say, why is it that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani is the prophet? What makes you think that he is the prophet? Why? What? Okay, let's analyze his claims. Let's analyze his prophecies. Let's analyze his lies. Let's analyze his lies about the hadith. Let's analyze his blasphemies about the Quran. Let's analyze his blasphemies against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, against Isa alayhi salam, against the other prophets. Let's analyze those claims. Let's analyze the fact that he says that he's better than Isa alayhi salam, he's greater in rank than Isa alayhi salam. Let's analyze all these things. So this is when we paint a good picture like that, then a person will understand where the fallacies and where the mistakes are, and how a person will understand that a person like that is not even fit to be called a pious person, a truthful person. So inshallah, we'll quickly go over the finality of the prophethood. We won't have time to, but just their main ishkal, their main objection. This is their main objection. So the final of the prophethood, they will say that he's the last. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the last legislative prophet, and non-legislative prophet can come after him. So many prophets with new sharia. So now we don't necessarily need to go into all that discussion right now. But the main thing that they will have objection, they will have the moment you try to speak with them about that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the last prophet. The moment you mention this, and I kid you not, the moment you mention that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the last prophet, they will say this. In that same breath, they will say that Isa alayhi salam is coming, Is he going to be a prophet? How does that make sense? How does it make sense that Isa alayhi salam will come and you're saying that there is no prophet after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So Isa alayhi salam has come. What is he? So this is literally the moment they're not going to save a breath and they will say right away this. So how to answer that? So right now, I'm just going to give you the proper way to answer it. If you say that there is no prophet will come after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then how will Isa alayhi salam return? This is the question, right? So proper way to answer. Proper way to answer. Number one, we say that no new prophet will be born after the birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No new prophet will be born. Was Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani born? Yes. Was Baha'u'llah, another false prophet, born? Yes. Was Musaylama Kadhab born? Yes. Was Aswad al-Unsi born? Yes. All these false prophets. There are many false prophets that came before Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani. Many false prophets. And there's false prophet coming in our times also. Many false prophets. So many people came to Mahdi. He's not one. He's not only one and only. There are many who claim the same thing, and there are many who claim that. So we say that no new prophet will be born after the birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And our proof is, if you're the last child of your father, it doesn't mean that all the older siblings are died. If I'm the last child of my father, I'm the last. There's no more children after me. I'm the last son. Does that mean all my older brothers are dead? So similarly, the finality of the prophethood does not assume that all the previous prophets are dead. It's a very simple concept to understand. Very simple concept to understand. If you're the last person coming in the chain, doesn't mean that everyone before is dead, has passed away. So similarly, the finality of the prophet does not assume that all the previous prophets are dead. So that's first a way to answer. Number two, another way to look at is the count of prophets ended with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The count. So now there cannot be an increase in that number. For example, if it was 124,000, now it cannot be 124,001. Cannot be, the count ended. And now the other thing they will bring that, okay, the other objection they will bring, okay, you say that Isa alayhi salam will come. Is he coming as a prophet? Or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removed his prophethood and now he's only an ummati? Will Isa alayhi salam still be a prophet? How can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take away the blessing of a prophethood? How can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take away that blessing? How can he only be an ummati, a person who is from the nation of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So the answer is clear that we say yes, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will be, that Isa alayhi salam, he will still be a prophet, but will come as an ummati. As an ummati. And a very beautiful example to understand the whole concept. Beautiful example. If a king visits another country, he's still a king. He is still a king, but he does not. But he does not start ruling that country. He does not start ruling that country. For example, if the Prime Minister of Canada comes to America for a visit, he's still gonna be the Prime Minister of Canada. He's still the Prime Minister. So will he start ruling America? No. So the king will be respected in that country. Of course, the king, even in the country he goes to visit, he will be respected. He'll be revered. He will be respected. He will still be recognized as a king. He's still king. When Prime Minister goes to America, he will still be recognized as Prime Minister. He will still be referred as Mr. President, as a Prime Minister. But he will not start ruling that country. So this is a very simple example to understand the whole concept. So we don't really need to talk too much about the finality of the prophethood. When they say that, oh no, there can be another prophet after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we say no, the prophethood ended with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There is no more new prophet that can come after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No new prophet can come after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And now quickly, and of course we won't have time. Hayat of Isa alayhi salam in and of itself is a course of like 1 or 2 hours, but we will definitely not have our time. But one clear thing is the argument, again, a priori fallacy. Again, they have their mindset. They have to assume that Isa alayhi salam passed away. They have to assume. They start by this assumption that Isa alayhi salam is dead. Now, every ayat of the Quran that will stay quite opposite to their understanding, quite opposite to their conclusion, they will not listen. They will not bat an eye. Why? Because the conclusion is already made. they're not the missionaries or Ghulam al-Qadini when he was reading, they were not sincere in the fact. They will not say, okay, let me put all my beliefs aside. Let me put all my beliefs aside. I'll be critical and I will see what the Quran has to say. No, but they will make their gymnastics because they already have to assume. They have to assume that Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani is Isa alayhi salam. Now they start with this assumption and they will distort all the verses of the Quran, all the ayats of Rasulullah, all the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they will literally throw away the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani himself says, "Raddi karata fact," and like will throw away as filthy paper. They literally do that to the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that mentions the second coming of Isa ibn Maryam. This is literally their methodology. This is their agenda. This is their methodology. So they begin with the assumption that Isa alayhi salam has passed away, and then they reinterpret every single verse and every single hadith, or they will reject those verses in the hadith. So we don't necessarily need to delve into this, but this is a concept, and it's a very simple concept we can answer. And apparently, like they say that there are 30 verses in the Quran that says that Isa alayhi salam has passed away. It's just a hollow void statement. Has nothing, it has no essence, no meaning. So the main answer against Ahmadiyya, the main answer against Qadiani, if they bring up that Isa alayhi salam passed away, if they bring up, then this is the nail in the coffin. You mention this, then you will leave the Qadiani dumbfounded. So this is the main answer against them. The usul is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never abrogates an aqidah. Aqidah issue, a theological issue. There can be differences in non-theological issue, like number of rak'ah or number of salat or prayers or number of du'as, prayers and number of litanies and all that. There can be differences in that. Hajj or this and that, there can be difference in that. But with respect to aqaid, with respect to theological matter, then there's no differences. Example, no new prophet will say that will abrogate the existence of angels. No new prophet will come and they say that there are two gods, or there's any other theological issue that you can think of. So this is the fundamental, the foundational truth. It's an axiomatic truth. It's a first principle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never abrogates previous creedal and theological matters. So now, simple answer to them. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani preached before that Isa alayhi salam is alive. In Barahin Ahmadiyya, he himself preached that Isa alayhi salam is alive. And over here I have the scans that I also had the belief that Isa alayhi salam had passed away. Isa alayhi salam nazil hongi, he will come down. So then he says that God informed him that Isa is dead. So this is where God supposedly informs that Isa alayhi salam he passed away. And again, look at here. He says so it is from the worst of adab, it is from worst of character that it is said that you should say that Isa alayhi salam did not die. So if you say that Isa alayhi salam وَإِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا شِرْكٌ عَظِيمٌ, and if you say that Isa alayhi salam did not die, if you say that he did not die, then it is the biggest shirk. If you believe that Isa alayhi salam is still alive, then this is the biggest shirk. So imagine a prophet, quote unquote, a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being a mushrik, doing shirk, assigning the biggest sin is being a polytheist. So the quote unquote a prophet of Allah being a polytheist for the biggest part of his life. So that's the whole thing I want to mention. And now, point to note, this is the strongest evidence to their claim of death of Isa alayhi salam, with all their convoluted explanations and mental gymnastics they give. Just ask them this: if it is that clear from the Quran, that in the Quran, it's very clear that Omar Muhammadun la Rasul, and all these verses so clear that it says that Isa alayhi salam passed away, then just your supposed prophet did not understand how to read the Quran. This was not his first thoughts when he read the Quran, that he passed away. Why so convoluted explanation? Your own prophet, when he read the Quran, did not understand, did not assume that this means the death of Isa alayhi salam. So this was just a very short point format I want to mention that will give how to equip us with the knowledge, like I mentioned in my introduction, will equip us with the knowledge, with the correct knowledge to engage with the Qadianis. And if there's anyone who is sincere, then they can look at these truths. They can look at it and themselves and see and see what Islam has to offer and what Islam means. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us understand all these concepts and all these truth guides us towards the truth. Inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair. Jazakumullah khair everyone for joining. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.